Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
It's up to you. Would you like me to stand or I can sit? I mean, it's up to you of what you would really like to have. And this is your time to be able to learn as well. So I wanted, just rather than me just talking to you, that this is also interactive. So just ask questions along the way. But I'll stand for at least right now. I sit a lot in either it's meetings or in my car. So standing actually feels good. So if that's okay.
I don't stand.
All right. And then I have all my notes here on my phone, so that's why. So I'm not just like looking at Instagram or at ESPN alerts. So it's all my notes here. But thank you for having me here and being a part of this. I work currently at Comfort Keepers. It's a home care company. The goal of this presentation, though, is to talk about what home care is, and not just specifically talk about Comfort Keepers. So I do have information about Comfort Keepers here in the back, but I will not talk at all about Comfort Keepers or a specific home care company. So the idea of this is to be able to help you learn what home care is and is not. So, and along the way, if you have questions, just please, you don't have to raise your hand, just ask them along the way. So I'm here for all of your questions, because this is not something that you would normally do. It's the first time someone thinks about home care is when someone like myself comes to your home and talks to you about home care. Or the first time you typically go to assisted living is when you have a grandparent or a spouse or a mother or father that's in assisted living. Most of the time people drive by places and don't even know what they are until they actually need to have the service. But so that is my introduction here. But so today's topic is, what is home care? Really, but what I'd like to start with is, I can give all the specifics about what home care is, but really my focus when I talk to people is to enable and to help you all with planning. The example I always use is, does anybody remember the magazine, Money Magazine?
Yes.
Do you remember that there had a yearly issue where it was the retirement issue? I always wanted to look at it. It was the thickest one. It had information in there, but it always had a couple that was, the one I always remember. I still have a copy of it. It's at the office. I didn't bring it today, but a couple walking along the beach, both gray hair, older, and talking about that what happens after you've worked, all of your life. You're 40, 50 years, now you and your spouse are retired. Fast forward though, 20 years from there, 25 years. No one really talks about that time frame. Everybody talks about those first 5 to 10 years after you're retired, but no one talks about when you're 78 and starting to, laundry is starting to become more difficult. You're having difficulty, being able to walk up and down your stairs as well. So it might be, for some person, it might be 78. I worked with people who were 95 and up until 6 months before a hip replacement or fall occurred, they were active. They were running half marathons. They were doing anything. So people expect that they may never want to do home care or move into assisted living, but the reality is that according to Jen Worth, about 77% of people at some point in time will need either home care or assisted living or skilled nursing level type of care. So just look around the room, and out of that, most likely there will be at least one or two of you who will need at some point in time home care. But really, that's about the planning process for it. So one of the first questions I ask somebody when I meet with them is, do you have a healthcare power of attorney? Do you have a will? Those are the first two questions. People will go, oh yeah, I do. And they go, well, just to ask, I go, is your power of attorney for healthcare activated? They go, I don't know. And the first thing that I say is, do you have somebody who helps you with all those things? So what I would highly recommend, before you even have discussions about home care or about assisted living care, skilled nursing care, whatever that would be, is to have all those ducks in a row. Talk, if you have an attorney, talk to that person. If you don't have an attorney, find an attorney that would specialize in elder law. Being able to make sure that you have your estate planning done. Make sure that you have a healthcare power of attorney that is, the documents are formulated, that you also have a financial power of attorney. Why that is important is because if something were to happen, you're walking out of here you fall and you break a hip or you become unconscious at that point in time, and you're no longer able to make a medical decision, and your power of attorney gets activated, now somebody else is making a decision for you on your behalf. The challenge with that is that many times people don't have those things in place, so a daughter or a son or a grandson becomes an activated power of attorney, and then really just winging it, because those discussions never have been discussed. We don't really talk about death, dying. I mean, we don't talk about home care, but we don't really talk about death and dying and what that looks like. What are your goals? Where would you want to live at? When you're 85 years old, do you want to live at home? Are you okay with moving to a community? It's strange for people to move into an assisted living community. The last time they've probably been in a setting like that was when they were in the military or in college, which might have been 50 years ago, or in the military. Most people don't live in those type of environments, or they were just married and they moved into an apartment complex. That's probably the last time some people have lived in an apartment complex in that style. So it's having those discussions and having trusted people around you that know the information and that can help you with those. But the best advice I can give anybody is to be able to have those things planned out, is to have somebody be able to know they can look at a document and go, okay, mom would like X, Y, and Z. She would like to live at home. She is comfortable with having home care. She prefers not to move into assisted living, but these are the reasons why I would want to do that. So it gives a guide for people to be able to help you make those decisions. Ultimately, those decisions are yours. People, will talk all the time about, oh, someone's stubborn. They don't want care. They don't want those things. Those discussions should be about how those work into your long-term goals. We're all independent here. We all are strong-willed. We're all adults, and you have to function in life every day, day in and day out, being independent. No one wants help really from anybody. I mean, does anybody want help? If I were to give you help right now, would you be willing and accept my help? Not knowing me, would you be okay with that?
Sure.
Sure, okay, all right.
I always need help.
And most people are not. I mean, most people are accustomed to not wanting and accepting assistance and accepting help. It is very difficult at times for people to be able to do that. Right? So now the main topic, what is home care? Home care is a service. It typically is a private fee-based system where you pay privately, and that Medicare is a health insurance program. It does not help cover any of the costs of home care. What I'll talk about later is home health, that your insurance, your Medicare, your supplemental insurance covers home health, but supplemental and Medicare does not cover home care. Two types of payment for home care are either private pay, which means you're paying out of your own pocket, or you have some form of Medicaid service. So you have typically, which if you live in Dane County, you live in the Oregon area, you have either IRIS or you have managed care would be your two options for that. So Medicaid can pay for those services. The challenge with some of the Medicaid providers is that not all home care companies have contracts with all of the different Medicaid providers. And typically it is challenging to find home care companies that will work with a lot of Medicaid providers. That's not in all cases, but in some cases that way. But home care then is any type of service that you would need, no matter where you lived, if it was in your residential home, if it was an apartment complex, it was in assisted living or skilled nursing or memory care, that you would need to have some type of assistance, whether it would be assistance with helping to do laundry, helping to do shower assistance, could be meal preparation, some of those basic things. Typically, when you're looking at home care, you should have always what's called a plan of care. It's a standard type of thing so typically people will call into our office, and in my experience will go, Mom needs help. And then you go, well, with what exactly? And then it's, well, she's having difficulty, getting up in the morning. She's, she's fallen 2 times last month, and I get these phone calls and she's on the floor. as a note, home care does not necessarily prevent people from falling, nor does being an assisted living. It's a, people fall and fall for various reasons, but typically what I always talk to people about is do not move into assisted living or don't get home care because someone's falling. Figure out why they're falling and when they're falling. Are they falling when they go in the shower? Does anybody know, I'll do an open quiz here. SSM did a study and looked at when people fall. What season do you think, now that's 74 degrees when I pulled in here, what season do you think people fall the most? Summer, fall, winter, or spring?
Winter?
Winter. Anybody else? Spring. Okay, so we have winter and spring. So it's summer. People typically stay inside. So if you look at, if you watch NBC 15 and you see Charlie Shortino says Tuesday morning we're going to get 6 inches of snow or 3 to 6 inches of snow. Do you stay inside or do you venture out? If you're retired and not working, do you say I'm just going to venture out and go to Hy-Vee or Woodman's and go grocery shopping, or do you delay it for the next day or the day after? It's typically summer because those are when the individuals that's when you're out in your garden. That's when you're out, doing some home repairs in my house, my garage, and so electrical work, all the different things. That's when you're outside, that's when you're doing things. And you're on a ladder and your almost 4-year-old Labrador comes between your ladder and almost knocks you off. That's happened to me where I've been on a ladder that way. So it doesn't matter if you're 53 or 83, those things can happen. But with home care, you are then being able to get a level of service, of things that people think, well, I don't need it because I'm able to do all these things. It's not about that you cannot do those things. It's that laundry not just takes 2 hours a day, but it's now taking you days to be able to do it because of, you have congestive heart failure, or you have, you're now on supplemental oxygen, or you have something that's becoming just harder and more stressful on your body to be able to do these things in a timely manner. I can typically walk into a home and go, how are they doing with laundry? Because, does the person look, put together? Are the clothes wrinkled? Look in the room, are the laundry basket full of laundry? Look in a washer and dryer. Are there piles of clothes, that are all around, that some are still in the washer, some are in the dryer, some are on top? Doesn't mean there's a lack of organization. It simply means that it's disorganized, and it's typically a sign that someone is having difficulty with those. What I always recommend with people with home care and that type of service is be able to, if you're thinking about having home care, you're already behind the 8 ball. Think about it before you really think you need it. And in those times, is that because if someone looks at you and says, I need home care, then they're already having difficulty.
How does one get assessed for being eligible for home care?
It would just be a call into a home care company to be able to then have a person come out to be able to assess what the needs would be.
You don't go through the doctor or anything like that?
No, that's a great question because we are home care, we're not home health. Home health is reimbursed through Medicare and through Medicaid. So those pieces, that's when a physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist, where with home care, you're having a person come to your home to help you with those activities of daily living, the showering, the grocery shopping, all those other things besides the speech.
And that's not considered health care?
No, it's not. It's not considered home health.
Oh.
It's not, because it's not billed through that system, but it's a necessary tool. It's one of those areas where I have professionals who always tell me like, oh, hey, you're the home health guy. Well, I'm not the home health guy because people don't understand the difference between home care and home health. So that would be, but have somebody come out. You have to have an order for from a physician or from a nurse practitioner to be able to have home health. You do not need an order to be able to have home care.
I see.
You can pick and choose how many days a week you want home care. You can pick the hours that you would like. You can pick the days of the week that you would like. You can say, I want somebody here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to noon, or from 1 to 3, whatever that would be, whatever that would look like. So what somebody would do then is come out is then would assess what you're telling me. So if it was you and I sitting down and you would say, well, this is what my daily routine was. I would start with typically, what time do you wake up? What do you have for breakfast? Have you historically, is that a normal breakfast for you? What is your routine? When you get up in the morning, what show is on TV? I know enough about early morning television to know that what time The Price is Right comes on versus what time The View comes on versus what time the Today Show is on. So if someone tells me every day I wake up, and the Today Show's on, I know it's probably between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. And then, I ask further questions to be able to try to assess and try to figure out, what time do you go to bed? And what time? Sometimes people will look at me with that odd kind of query, like, why are you asking me when I go to bed? Because I'm here just to try to see what I need help with. It's, what are your routines? Are you going to bed? Are you getting up at 9 a.m. in the morning and going to bed at 5, or are you going to bed at 10? That type of thing. So it tells me a lot about what your day routine is and what that looks like. And then and then if you're saying, well, and I would look at you and go, looking just at your house and asking you honest questions about then, what do you have for breakfast? If you go, oatmeal versus, I'm making eggs, does it look like in your home that you're making eggs? I mean, I worked with people who have advanced dementia and go, yeah, I drive every day. And I go, okay. And I turned to a daughter, and daughter said, we sold mom's car in 2019. So I go, okay, she's not driving. So I figured, some of those things out. So some of this just through deductive reasoning. But did that answer your question?
Sort of. In that, as an individual, how does a person judge at what point they actually need help? Again, you started out saying we're all independent, So how does an individual determine, and I thought maybe, I don't know what kinds of signs we should look for. If we need a little bit of help, is it okay to call home care and then from there figure out maybe I should wait 2 years, or I don't know how you figure that out?
That's a great question. Is that it's part of that is your own judgment. Are things taking longer for you to complete? Are you still mowing your lawn? Are you shoveling your driveway, or do you have somebody do that? Do you have the stamina, like you did a year ago, 2 years ago? Is laundry, are you able to, even looking at it through your routine in your day, look at how long it's taking you to be able to complete those tasks? And then when you do a shower, how often are you showering? And are you showering less, as an example, because you're concerned about falling in the shower, or because it's tiresome, like you get done with the shower and you want to take a nap? Like that would be just an example.
Question to that. Sometimes when someone signs up for home care, is it like a year contract, or can they do it on a temporary basis for I just had surgery and I have rehab for the next 2-3 months. Can I have them come in just while I'm in rehab?
Yes, that's a great question. There's no long-term contract when it comes to home care. No matter what company you use, there's, for the company that I represent, we ask for a 2-week notice. But some companies have less than that. So you could sign up, have us, you need us for 2 months, a month, and then you can end up giving us a 2-week notice, discontinue services, and in a year if you needed us to come back to be able to help. So it's really is an as-needed service. There's no long-term contract to be able to have people in. But it's really assessing your own day and assessing how your physical strength and how you're doing with those things. Is laundry exhausting to you? Are you skipping meals because you're not going to the grocery store? And is it becoming harder for you to do a trip to Woodman's or to Hy-Vee, you know, those normal places that you would normally go? That it's really more self-awareness about how you're doing. So, and stepping up and going, you know what, I'm not as, you know, I look at myself in the mirror and go, I think I'm 23, and the mirror says you are not 23.
Right.
So it's the recognition. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
In my case, it's a spouse, and so would you come up just for companionship, because I'm still doing all that stuff. I'm helping him with showering, and I'm doing the cooking and cleaning and everything, so it would be at this point because he can't be left alone.
It's a respite.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. If you have a spouse that you're taking care of, and I give you a lot of credit because you're under more stress. Typically, in my experience, caregivers and primary caregivers, especially spouses, end up having, they're at higher risk of falls or higher risk of health, of complicated health issues. And what then do you do then if you become ill? How do you then have someone take care of your spouse? So you can have set days for that. So just to do companionship and just to have somebody come out to be able to say, you know, I have worked with people who are like, they just like to go and, you know, go to this one specific, you know, restaurant every day and have coffee. You know, I used to work with a gentleman here in Oregon who would go to Burger King every day. So the staff would end up going to the house because they weren't, he shouldn't have been driving, and then ended up because of just his lack of peripheral vision, memory loss. So the caregiver would end up taking him every day to Burger King. That's what he would do every single day. So that was.
Would be my choice.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I would probably say Firefly or, you know, somewhere else that would be, you know, it's the, but that would, but yes. So absolutely, that is, and with home care, you can have someone come in and be able to help on a, you know, once a day. It can be once a week. Is you get to pick what that is because you're paying for it. It's a fee for service for that service. So there's typically an hourly rate that you have. Every company is different, but on average, consider home care in this area to be about $40 an hour on average. That would be the average for this area.
And there's usually a minimum.
There's usually minimums, yes, depending on, there are some companies, those are good questions to ask when you would call in. What are your minimums? What's your hourly rate? When, you know, how long do you have, is there a long-term contract? I do not know of a home care company in the Dane County area that has you locked into a long-term contract. That's non-existent. But a couple of other questions to ask is, are you bonded and insured? And why that is important is because if you go and a caregiver comes out to your home and you leave to, you know, go and have some time alone, and if she slips and falls while you're in your living room, which has happened. I've gotten calls from caregivers like, I just slipped and fell and I think I may have broken my ankle. And but that is covered by the company if they're bonded and insured. If they're not bonded and insured, it's questionable then about what is covered and what is covered. So people that you don't have to worry about your homeowner's insurance, somebody slips and falls in the driveway, it's 100% covered by the company.
Never would have thought of that.
And if there's a car accident, which we had a caregiver who, a family member came into the driveway and hit the staff's car accidentally. We didn't have to worry, but I mean, it ended up being covered, but we didn't have to go. And I was on 138. I live in Evansville, and I was on crossing 138. I was on Highway 14, and I got rear-ended in my work vehicle, which is out in the parking lot. And I ended up, it wasn't, my insurance wasn't contacted. Yeah, there was nothing on my record for that, but it was completely covered by the company for that. So yeah, so you're wanting to ask that, but typically rates are higher for companies that because the cost is absorbed, you're paying for that essentially. You're paying for it up front. Best example I use is buying a Toyota versus another vehicle. Most likely Toyotas are more expensive. I'm not promoting Toyotas. Toyota's more expensive typically up front, but there's usually less cost in the future where cars, that are not Toyotas usually they're less expensive, but they're more expensive down the road. So that's a rough estimate of that. So, but yes, you can adjust the hours, you can have them do what you would like. You can literally just say, I just want companionship for 2-3 hours and hang out, go for a walk, go to the library, do whatever your spouse enjoys to do. So that would be, I would say, look at it sooner than later, because then it helps, because as time goes on, your spouse is only gonna need more care. And that time is gonna go on, and you live with your spouse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you don't get a break. If you don't give yourself respite, then you never get a break.
That's the thing, I don't end up doing something fun, and end up getting all my things done that I need to get done, which is good too, but.
Well, yeah, and then if I was to sit down with you, I would say then plan, and this isn't about cost, this is really just about looking at your overall health and well-being, is then plan one day to be able to do those errands, and then plan one day for fun things. Go out to coffee with your friends, go to lunch, plan specific things. So, do one day on a Tuesday, do the other day on a Thursday, and have 2 separate days, or a Monday and a Friday. It's always up to you. Somebody like myself would help guide the conversation for you to be able to help. Yeah, I would recommend to have the days so that you have built-in errand days and built-in fun days. Go play golf. We have a client who we support, and their spouse goes and plays golf while the staff is there. He plays 18 rounds of golf and comes home after that all done and is relieved and happy, but would not have been able to play 18 rounds of golf on that day without having a caregiver there. So.
It might take me 10 hours.
But yeah, it depends. Yeah, it's a long day. I think like that day for that person it's 8 hours. Not that we do. So yeah, 18. But he enjoys it and it's fulfilling to him, and so it's figuring out a plan. And you can always, with home care, you can always change the plan. So you can end up, you had Tuesdays and Thursdays, now you want to change it to Mondays and Fridays, or Mondays and Tuesdays. So it's your discretion on what you want to do. And then you can always have, if you have a companion that comes out and it's not a good match, you can always then call and say, this isn't a good match, they're not getting along very well.
So you try to have the same person come out?
Yes. Yeah, that is as for company I represent, that even before COVID, we always, I've been with the company for 11 years. Our philosophy was, it was vital to have the same person to create consistency and support and for that person. What we were fighting though is that when that person left, for whatever reason, then all of a sudden the person said, well, I don't want to have services anymore. And the other part was that when that person took vacation, we had difficulty that they didn't want a replacement. So what we try to do now, and what we've done a much better job, is we really build a team of people, of having a couple people that get to know someone, so that if somebody has a sick child, or they're sick themselves, and that happened during COVID, we would get a call and go, hey, I tested positive for COVID. And we're like, okay, well, we have 2 or 3 other people now that can come and work with that person. So to be able to do that. So that just takes some planning on our part. But yes, it's important to have a couple people that know your spouse well, that get to build a relationship. So, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be good to start out that way, because then when you transition to needing help, then you would be familiar with that person, instead of having just a stranger come in and all of a sudden he needs help in the bathroom.
Right.
He would be very reluctant with that. So.
Right. Yeah, what I would do if I'm working with you is that if that was your long-term goal, and no matter if you work for like our company or someone, our company, what you'd want to say is, in the future, my spouse is going to need more care. So I automatically, if I'm meeting with you, I would say the person who is there needs to be skilled enough, and so not just a companion, but needs to know how to do,
Right.
activities of daily living, needs to know how to dressing, undressing, showering, assistance in the bathroom, so that's not, unfamiliar to them, because we've had those cases happen we've had a companion and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, they need help with showers, and the person's like, whoa, I don't feel comfortable doing showers, now we have to have someone else come in. So I would start off with somebody who knew how to do all those things right away, so then when time went on, then you could have somebody do that, and then there was no disruption and no transition to another care. Yeah. Did you have?
I just wanted to add it, but yeah, so I work for Comfort Keepers and did that, and I feel like it's a learning experience for you and for your husband. And I was like, when you get used to someone coming in your house, I felt like people always had certain ways they make their coffee, fold their towels, and make their bed. And I feel like whatever's important to you, like, make sure you're like, can you make sure you do this, because this will make my life easier, or like, you know. I'm thinking some of my clients, because I did respite for Comfort Keepers, and yeah, sometimes the husband would just go out and bike, you know, but then like, as we got that relationship of like, oh, can I just make some meals or throw in some laundry just to make your life a little easier while you're on respite, and you kind of like work out like, you know, on that team of like, okay, well, I know how to do her hair, so I'm gonna come on Fridays and do her hair, and then you don't have to worry about it, or let's do the shower so you don't have to do it on that day, or let's do the PT exercises you're supposed to do so you don't have to do them, or like, you just kind of figure out how to make your load a little less heavy, and transition to that, okay, let's eventually learn how to shower or get up in the day or whatnot. It's a learning curve for both of you, but you need to be supported.
Your respite workers are totally different from your home care?
No, they're all like, we have 3 different types of caregivers. So we typically have the personal companion, then we have a personal care type of worker, and then we have certified nursing assistants. Okay. There's no requirement in the state of Wisconsin that your home care provider or home care staff have to be certified nursing assistants, because typically those individuals who are a CNA want to do more medical based care. They want to do those type of cares where they're not typically our companions. So they typically work with a different type of client. So what we do then is sitting down, so when anybody would be sitting down with you, they would figure some of these things out, ask those questions, get the information, be able to then go, okay, this is what I'd recommend to be able to do. You know, have a couple days a week to start with. Have that, you know, time frame, or that 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever the minimum would be. Some companies have minimums, others don't. Have that set up, and then get a team of people to be able to know who your spouse is, and then what you should do is have a plan of care right away. Is that it's not just a wing it, you know, you sign up for services and then somebody comes in and just like, hey, what would you like done today? Like it is a complete opposite. What typically we'll have done is that a assessment is completed. So it's a formal assessment just to see what needs are, and then request on your behalf. Yes, I want to be able to do laundry. I want to have the person do laundry. While I'm out having coffee or lunch, can the person do a load of laundry? And that's all documented. And then the caregiver, when they come, she'll have she'll have a plan of care, and she'll have it as electronic. It'll be on her phone, and then can look all those things up and say, okay, today I need to be able to do this, this, and this, and this on those. And then typically the caregiver will walk in and go, hey, it has today that you want these things done. Do you want those things done, or yay or nay? Or are there other things that you would want that person to do? So just because you have something documented, like, oh, I want laundry done. If you're like, I don't want laundry done today, can we do this instead? It's absolutely okay for you to end up changing those. The only thing typically that most home care companies staff will not have them do are lift beyond a certain level. It's because of insurance purposes. So our requirement is 25 pounds. Every company is going to be a little bit different, but consistently across the board at 25 pounds. Or yard work, shoveling, mowing the lawn, all those things are typically not done by home care providers. But everything within the house for all those types of services can be done.
You're talking about cleaning as well in the house?
Cleaning, yes. I preface that with, though, for any home care company, is that we are primarily a home, we do home care, and secondarily, we are cleaning. People, because if you compare, why I say it that way is because people will compare our prices to a
Oh.
cleaning service.
I see.
Cleaning services are more expensive than our typically our
Yeah.
hourly rate. So, they'll have.
Which I think is backwards,
Yeah, so people will.
personally, because of the skill needed to do the care.
Right, so people will call us and go, hey, we want cleaning done, and so we'll go through the assessment, and all they want is all cleaning done. And we're like, we're not probably the best match for you because
Right.
our caregivers are not house cleaners. And so they're not going to potentially meet your standards because we don't expect them to do that. So we don't have that expectation that they're going to, we will have examples of people that will want every one of their knickknacks in a cabinet individually
Oh my
wiped
God.
down and cleaned. So we stay away from that type of situation, not because we don't trust the caregiver, it's that it's not our focus. Our
Correct.
focus is on the care for the individual rather than if you want those things done, because people will, first thing they'll say to me is, oh, I'm gonna, cancel my person who does, my laundry or does, my house cleaning. And I go, no, keep that person, because then you have now a secondary person to be able to help. But the caregiver should not be your primary person, so.
Okay.
And you get in a situation like yourself where you need that person not to do house cleaning at all. You really need the person to do activities of daily living or helping with dressing, undressing, showering, toileting, and a spouse can do those other areas. Over time, like you had pointed out, I always encourage people to say, okay, do the laundry, have that extra load of laundry because it's one less thing. If, as an example, 2011, I was working in hospice many years ago, and I remember having a headlamp, and I have a younger child at the time, and in 2012 have a newborn. So in 2012 I have a younger child and a newborn, and I remember coming home at 9 o'clock at night with a headlamp and mowing my lawn.
Oh my God.
And in the dark, it's 9:30 at night,
Oh,
and here I am mowing my lawn. My neighbors are probably a little annoyed at me, and I look at my lawn the next day and go, wow, that was bad. That was, I ended up hiring a service to be able to
Sure.
help me with that. And I thought, I'll only do it until, I'm done working in hospice or my schedule changes, it's short term. That was in 2011. Today, 2025, I still have that same company do it because it's one less thing that I have to be concerned about. It's one less thing, and the lawn looks much better than when I was doing it with a headlamp at 9:30 at night on a Tuesday, trying to do that. So it's understanding your limits. It's, am I okay with doing the lawn? Yeah, it's nice, but I was not, keeping up with the, with the way I wanted the lawn to look like. And, I wasn't mowing the lawn consistently as well. Questions before we?
How could your company handle an urgent respite need? Like I have a mom that's in a facility 2 hours away, and I'm her power of attorney. So I might urgently have to leave, and then I have a son in Florida who just had premature twins, and one of them's gonna need surgery, and I might have to urgently be down there for a few days, 3 days, 4 days. So, I don't know how I'm gonna work that out.
What I would highly recommend with any company that you'd use is to find a company and be able to hire them, have them on service, and then because the process to be able from start to finish, typically it's a phone call in. So if you call in and say, oh, I need to leave, I need to go, that means someone has to either send you information electronically, you have to sign, and have to be able to then at some point meet with you in your home to be able to go through documentation. It takes, a day or two, like business-wise, to be able to then have that done and get the information into our electronic database, find the caregiver. So really, we guarantee within 3 days that you'll have a person.
Mhm.
But what I would say is start sooner than later, have that done ahead of time, because then it's much easier to have a caregiver than to call a company and say, I'm leaving, you need to be able to go. There's still not to be totally honest, there's never a guarantee in those situations. If you don't have a consistent schedule, it's incredibly difficult to call any company and say, hey, I need a caregiver tomorrow here at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's difficult to do that, but if you have the paperwork and you have all those things already done, it's much easier, and you explain the situation like, this is what's going on. Any company will then work on your behalf to find a caregiver to be able to go. And so then you have the criteria already. Okay, it's only a female, and it's only males, or it doesn't matter if it's males or females. So you have all the criteria already set up. Then we know. So it's then any company knows. So yeah, I would say, and that's not a selling point. That is just from a logistics standpoint. That is knowing. I've gotten those phone calls of, hey, it's Friday and I'm going on vacation. Or I'm leaving for a wedding tomorrow morning, at 10 o'clock, can you have somebody? And we're like, for real? Really? And because people just don't understand, like and so it's just getting those things done and getting the groundwork laid out. It doesn't mean also that you have to keep, like I've worked with people that have 2 or 3 home care companies. You don't have to just have one company, especially during COVID. I worked with families that the one company covered the nights and one company covered the days, because you'd call and go, hey, I need somebody, 24 hours a day, and they would be like, we don't have the ability to do that, but we have somebody that can do the nights, and then call this company and see if they have days available, and they would do that. So we did that a lot during COVID. During that time frame, we would work with 2 or 3 companies.
I have a friend who lives in a rural area, and she and her husband are getting more frail. They're both in their 80s, and he's had polio, so he has difficulty walking. I'm trying to get her to get some better medical attention, and I'm thinking, how do I learn, or how will I direct her to learn what home care agencies there are in her area? It's a rural area.
Where's the area?
Rubicon, I think it's Jefferson County.
Okay.
Up near, what's it? I want to say Heartland, but that's not right. Is it
Hartford?
Hartford?
No, it's
Hartford.
Heartland. I think it's Waukesha
Okay.
County, maybe.
Yeah, that would be, so I would then.
North of
The
Milwaukee,
ARC.
between Milwaukee and Green Bay.
Yeah, would be the Aging and Disability Resource Center.
Oh,
So
yeah.
contact them, then look for, and then say, this is where the person lives at, and then they should, and I forgot it. I have a packet that I got from the ADRC. I was gonna bring it today,
Oh.
but I completely forgot. But it's a packet that has all of the home care companies listed for Dane County.
Oh.
So that the Aging and Disability Resource Center in that area will have all of the home care companies. And I have to say, those lists are much better updated now. When years ago, it was literally just a Word document, and it had probably 40 plus home care companies on there, and it was pages and pages
Wow.
worth of, and it had home health, it had home care, it had
Wow.
skilled nursing, all these different places in there. So yeah, find out what county they live in,
Okay.
and then contact the Aging and Disability Resource Center. At least they'll have a starting point.
Oh, that's what I wanted to do, was find some way to get them information.
Yeah, that would
And then they
be,
can follow through.
Yeah.
you could even call and then have it mailed to you and then end up giving it to
Oh.
them. So I mean, that might be, because it might be a situation where, if you say, oh, can you mail it to there, they would, but then
Well,
your friend
then
might end up.
how do you know that they'll follow through? It might be, because I've already written her a letter this last time. I said, are you thinking that you'll have an emergency situation and then your daughter will come in and help? It's like people are not planning. It's like you wait for a crisis, and then who takes care of that crisis situation, It's like, how do you, I was trying to ask her to start thinking ahead, is kind of what I'm thinking.
The honest answer is no one does.
Oh.
Is that when a crisis occurs, is that you have, like, earlier when I was saying about how everybody's independent and doesn't want help,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer of self-autonomy and self-direction over safety. Is that, you know, one of the bigger challenges that I see are when I sit in a meeting with a daughter and not to pick on daughters, but or a son with a parent. Daughter saying one thing, parent saying one thing.
Oh, right.
And so it's this battle. I jokingly always call it like a battle royale. It's like WWE type of, it's very dramatic and it's painful for both of those parties to be
Right.
able to figure out what's needed. What I would say in those situations is daughter understanding that this mother raised you, has lived in this home for X amount of time, and is reluctant, and it's figuring out the why somebody doesn't want the assistance. Is it affordability? Is it they're scared because people will judge them? Is it
Right.
scared because they're close to the end of their life and they feel like they're close to dying? I just had a client call me yesterday who said, "Hey, do you know where I can rent the racks like you see at department stores that have clothing racks?" And I said, "For your house?" And she goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, why do you need that?" And I have no problem with you getting that, but why do you need that? She goes, "Well, I'm not going to need them much longer." And I go, "Oh, why aren't you going to need them much longer?" "Well, I'm going to die." I go, "Okay." There's nothing that, medically that we know of that she's going to be dying soon, but in her mind, she needed to prepare for dying. So for her, the catalyst for asking the caregiver to get a clothing rack was because she thought she was going to be dying. But in those situations, it's usually, in all seriousness, when there's a crisis that occurs and, say, Adult Protective Services is contacted, I'm contacted usually. We have her name is Joyce Schmidt. She's a dementia crisis.
Yes, I know her.
Yeah,
For 80 years.
she will, and now it's through Dane County, it's through now Adult Protective Services. They'll call me and people like myself to be able to help in those situations because it's a crisis situation, because it is extremely difficult because you have to determine if the person is not just making a poor choice, but that is making a poor choice because of some dementia, or it's some MS, that there's another factor, something that is out of their control, that they're making the decisions, because people are allowed to make poor decisions. People are allowed to not have care.
Right.
But so I want to make sure I get through everything. So what home care is not. Typically what people think of many times is, and what it's confusing. So when someone goes to the hospital, someone is admitted, stays in the hospital for 3-4 days due to illness or due to a fracture, and then ends up going to a skilled nursing facility, or is discharged home and has home health. Home health is the skilled piece of it. That's, you fracture your hip and now you have a person coming into your home or in a skilled nursing facility that is going to help you with exercises to be able to help with those. That is home health. That's covered by Medicare and your supplemental insurance. So that is covered. So typically you don't have to have a large out-of-pocket expense for that. But it's for a limited period of time, without getting into specifics of it. And then those are situations where then a home health nurse or a social worker then is calling our company or other companies and saying, "Hey, we're getting done. We've been here for 2 weeks. The service is being discontinued. The person we believe still needs help. Can you come out and be able to help?" But the person now is going to have to then switch from home health to home care and then pay privately for those services. So we do not have physical therapists. We do not have, in home care, we do not have physical therapists. We don't have social workers. We don't have occupational therapists. We don't have speech therapists. So those are considered to be a skilled nature, or a medical purpose. Not meaning that home care cannot do medical services, but it's that they're not licensed to provide that service. So, does that make sense to people? That was But really, that is the biggest piece, and people a lot of times will call too and go, does Medicare cover this? And I'd already covered that piece of it, but it is strictly, Medicare is a home health. I always tell people that Medicare is health insurance, strictly health insurance, will not then cover. There's only been one case ever in the 24 years that I've done this where there was a health system here locally that covered it for a very specific period of time. The program does not exist anymore, but that's the only thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
But two other ways you can get paid if you're a veteran,
Yeah.
right?
You can always, yeah, that's, I mean, you can go through the VA. So contacting the VA and being able to, it is also, it's beneficial. You don't have to have that, but to have, to already be connected to the VA, have your spouse or yourself be already connected, but then you get assigned a team of people, and then the social worker there, the discharge planner through the VA, you'll get assigned a specific number of hours. They'll do what's called a functional screen, so they'll have someone assess the situation. In general, VA services are extremely beneficial for veterans, but they don't cover a lot of hours. So they'll cover 4 to 6 hours typically a week for a veteran in that, but it is paid by the VA.
Home health or home, do they cover home care?
They will, yeah, they'll end up, so what they'll do is they'll contract with companies like Comfort Keepers or other companies, but then the VA pays for that service.
Oh.
So that will go, so for those hours, and you can have VA services and you can have home care services as well. You have to pay for the home care services out of pocket, but the VA hours are paid by the VA for that, so. Yeah. That's, I can help if anybody has a spouse or individual that's a veteran.
Or long-term care insurance.
Long-term care insurance, yeah, that's long-term care insurance. Typically those are separate policies that somebody has received or has purchased. Those have elimination periods where you have to, it's like putting in a claim if you get in a car accident, you put the claim in and then you have so many days depending on what your policy is. So usually it can be 30, I just working with a family that's 30 days. Another family's 90 days, so that you have to pay for those services out of pocket. But in most cases, if you don't have long-term care insurance as of right now, you're not going to get it.
When does your long-term care insurance, when will it kick in? I mean, what has to happen to you before you, because I've been paying for that.
Yeah,
to have long-term care.
That's a great question. The two things that you have to look at is you have to qualify then for services. So you have to then end up, so if you have your long-term care insurance premium that you're paying for, you then have to then meet, unless you have a diagnosis of dementia, that if you do not have a diagnosis of dementia, you have to then have 2 activities of daily living that a caregiver would do for you. And that could be help with using the bathroom. Doesn't mean that they're physically helping you there. It can be that they're walking with you and then providing assistance.
So they will help you with some help in your home. You don't have to go into assisted living anymore.
No.
But it also depends on your policy. So the biggest thing is that every single policy in the state of Wisconsin, even within the same company, is different. So you have to look at the language within your own policy to see what it covers. Does it cover home care? Does it cover assisted living? Does it cover skilled nursing? So you have to look at those things. So if it covers home care, it will give you the elimination period. So typically, so you've been paying the premiums for 15, 20 years. You'll have an elimination period where the day you put the claim in, so you call your long-term care insurance company today, and they'll say, okay, we put in a claim, but now when you start services, you have to pay then based upon your elimination period for those amount of days before your daily reimbursement will be put in place. So here you are, you pay the premium, so it gets frustrating if you go, you pay the premium for 15 years and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I have to wait another 30, 60, 90 days?
Questions about your policy.
Yeah, so that it's, and working with, if you have an insurance agent or if you have a financial advisor, give them I highly recommend give them your long-term care insurance policy, even if you did not buy it from them, have them review it for you, and they're licensed in those areas, have them tell you what that is, tell you what the elimination period is. what your daily reimbursement rate is. So yes, you should utilize it, because with most long-term care insurance policies, if you don't use it, you lose the benefit if you die before you
Yeah.
use the full
Yeah,
benefit.
ask about it.
Yeah,
I asked them if they'd pass it on to my daughters, but they won't do that either.
No, use it. I had a client that used it to wash their windows. Like, that was their respite. He's like, he used part of his long-term care because I cared for his wife, but like, they used part of that money for someone to come in and wash their windows. So
You
he
can
would
actually
have,
do that?
yeah, be
It-
covered.
you have though, but a
depends
part
on the
of,
cost.
yeah, a part of that though is you have to, part of the requirement, so you can have them do laundry
Right,
and
yeah.
meal prep, but you have to have the two areas
Mhm.
where that you have to then need assistance. So it's either, so on those days, then you'd have to get assistance with some form of activity of daily living. So it has to be dressing, undressing, showering, toileting, walking. So it has to be something physical. So unless you have a diagnosis of dementia, excuse me, with the diagnosis of dementia, long-term care insurance companies have waived that requirement for the activity of daily living piece of it. You don't, because we would work with people years ago that would have a diagnosis of dementia, and we would not be able to do any of the activities of daily living, and the person wouldn't get reimbursed that day for those services because we didn't meet the requirement, because the person kept on going, no, no, no. And if you've ever worked with somebody or known somebody with dementia, and you walk in a house and go, hey, hey Bob, it's time for a shower today. They're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
So for 3 hours, you've tried to give a shower to somebody and they
Yep.
don't want a shower. So that's the reason why I got waived. But yeah, you have to still meet, so windows can be done, laundry, dishes, all those things can be done that way.
What about having a dog? I mean, if I'm gone for 4 hours, at least the dog will have to be let out at least once while I'm gone. So
Yes.
is there any rules or anything about pets or?
You put it in the plan of care, yeah, so like for the company that I represent, no issues with dogs. We just make sure that, like, we notify the caregivers, because we have caregivers who are allergic to dogs. So a caregiver who would be in your home was comfortable with dogs. So, yeah, if we put in the plan of care that, like, I have a client I work with that they take care of the cat. They change the cat litter, they make sure she gets fed, they, do all those things. But with dogs, taking for a walk, going to the dog park, whatever it would be with that, yeah. So you just put it in the plan, so you have that a part of it. So, yeah.
Do you work in tandem with hospice?
We
Most of
do.
your nursing care comes in through hospice. Do you work in tandem with them?
We can, absolutely. Yeah, that's people think hospice is hospice is intended to be for the last 6 months or of your life. But that people have this assumption that it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh.
It is not. It is typically, it's a nurse visits
Right.
as needed. So it's
Yeah.
usually, it's typically every 14 days. Depending on the situation, a nurse could visit more frequently than that, but an aide may not even visit during that period of time. It just depends on what the need is. So typically, when we work with hospice, it's in tandem. It's because the client needs additional services or needs assistance, possibly is closer to the end of life and needs assistance. Now they need they're giving a client a bed bath, and it's helpful to have 2 people there. So they have hospice there, which is covered under Medicare and private insurance or private insurance, and they have a caregiver there to be able to help.
Okay, thanks.
Do people have questions? I know we're right at 2 o'clock here, but I don't want to, have you all leave without having all of your questions answered.
If you covered everything you want to say?
I believe through all of that, yeah, I did. But having home care, to me, obviously I've done this for 11 years through my current company. I've worked in the field since 1999. Home care, to me, the people who are wanting to help you want to be there to be able to help you. And really, it's a person-centered approach to care, meaning that you get someone who will do exactly what you want to have done in a day. It could be walking a dog, it could be laundry, it could be doing the dishes. It's helping you with all those things in a day that you are having more difficulty with. And having the recognition that, you know what, if I have somebody help me with laundry, I will get this done in an efficient period of time, rather than it taking me 2 or 3 days and me becoming stressed because I am running out of laundry. Or going to doctor's appointments. Doctor's appointments are stressful. And how many of you have walked into a doctor's appointment and out of a doctor's appointment and go, wow, what just happened? And like part of my job, I do case management for people, and I go as an advocate for that person. So I document what's going on, and I communicate then with the family or with the person, representative, to be able to, notify them of what happened during that appointment. Because I do that myself. I walk in an appointment and I don't particularly want to be there. And I work in healthcare and I don't want to be at the doctor and for myself. And then I leave and I go, what just happened? Like I have to look at my chart afterwards to figure out what happened. But does anybody else have any questions?
So do you provide services weekends and holidays
We
as
do.
well?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
365 days a year.
We do. Yeah, you can have
24/7.
services. Yeah, you can have services 7 days a week, holidays. Yeah, that there's no days that are not covered for home care. Yeah, it's all based upon your personal preference. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.